podcast because of the traffic and the rains and everything. अब जब दिल्ली में बारिश नहीं होगी तब भी लोग complain करेंगे. We've been all chatting and having coffee because we were here a little early. We've realized we've lot in common and they have a lot to share. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 minutes to set some context, and then we're going to sort of try and jump in. Of course, we're all aligned on what we're doing. So this is a bit of a blasphemous panel, right? Because we're using the word wealth and culture in one sentence, right? So we're basically saying the culture of startups is that you need to create wealth, otherwise what's the point of doing a startup? And I think there's a lot more to it, and that's what we want to unravel today. Some facts for everyone in the audience. In 2021, $35 billion went into early stage deals. Last year, it was only $8 billion. This year, we're already on a run rate of about 7.5. We should close the year at 10. So it's a better year for deals. We're getting back there, but again, it's not 35, right? And this is an optimistic year for India. The bull market's still going. So what that means is that there is recovery, but the recovery is muted, and it's more, people are using the word logical. Let's see how long that lasts. 4 years ago, or at least 3 years ago, there were 100 plus unicorns in India, valued at 350 billion. Today, Horan has just replaced that list and said, we only have 67 in India left, worth about 220 odd billion. So some are calling this value erosion, some of them are calling it right pricing. But one of the big things that's emerging is that it's becoming tougher to jump that valuation barrel. And if that's the case, one of the things we want to talk about today is whether that's going to impact the ability to create that wealth for you, which is notional as a percentage of the value of your company. Is it going to prevent you from, or prevent people from becoming founders and jumping into the startup fray, right? Both either as an employee, early stage employee, or a leader, or as a founder. Another interesting fact that I was reading up while doing on this panel is how funds operate is also changing. The people who are actually giving this money and giving this wealth sort of to unlock. Recently, while I was setting up my fund, I found out that in Eastern Europe, especially in Russia, funds now have a target where 15 to 18% of their companies in their funds are actually dividend-paying companies. So it's no longer a unicorn foundry in the rest of the world where you're just saying, look, let's just put the chips on the roulette table and let the ball spin and we'll see something will come out as a fund returner. They're actually balancing what dhanda is, recognizing that and betting on that. So let's try and touch that in today's conversation as well. I definitely want to just sort of close my monologue with the last point, which is, I think India is very interestingly stuck in this 3-phase cycle. Phase 1 was 2010 to 2015 when we were copying all the models. So for an Amazon, there was a Flipkart. For an Uber, there was an Ola. For a DoorDash, there was a Zomato. So that copy was happening. That was phase 1, the Me Too phase. 2015 till today, and COVID, of course, has prolonged that. We are doing something which is the indigenization. So we're taking Threads, ONDC, UPI, putting all of that into the business models and making them specific to India, to the point that the last 30 unicorns in India, 20 of them do not have a corollary in the West. They're all for India, from India models that have created that kind of value. And I think phase 3, in my opinion, is where India starts becoming a net exporter, where the from Bharat solutions start, helping leapfrog innovation and growth in other developing economies. And some of India's models get copied. For example, France adopting UPI, right, is a big thing. So I think these are a couple of the threads that I want to go through and touch on it. But as we are going through all of this, one of the things that, to the last point was, we're going through this big phase. Everything is changing. Paisa change ho raha hai. So we know money is coming, but it's not coming easy. We know funds are investing, but their mindsets are also changing. We know that there is innovation happening, but that innovation is also changing. So in this, I want to take, let's say, maybe 2 minutes with each person and go through, starting from you, Vaibhav, is just we go through the, across the panel and just talk about what does it mean to being a founder today. How has that changed from when you started to today? How are you seeing it continuously change? And specifically when you talk about this India versus Bharat divide, what do you think of it? So maybe just touch a little bit on that, talk a little bit about yourself, your company, but maybe touch a little bit about this question.
Uh, well, thank you and proud to be here among the esteemed panelists that we have. Uh, I represent Bambrew, and Bambrew is into sustainable packaging solutions where we develop alternates to single-use plastics, as simple as that. We work with almost all of the major brands that you had heard of, right from Amazon to Flipkarts, Mintras, Unilevers of the world. And we help them reduce the carbon emissions. We have saved roughly more than 135,000 tons of carbon emissions so far, reducing more than 65,000 tons of single-use plastic in consumption. That's about me. One thing that you rightly said was, change is the only constant, right? It's ever changing. And as an entrepreneur, when you start the journey, the first and the foremost thing that comes to you, why have you started the journey of entrepreneurship is because you wanted to solve for something, the pain that you have gone through, the problem that you have seen so closely that you want to solve for it. And that's one thing, which keeps on evolving, which keeps on telling you that what you are building is right. But over the years, the market makes you thick-skinned. The market and the people that you work with make you realize, how you can become more mature, how you can become more positive, how you can do something different at each phase of life. Business journey is not constant, it's ever evolving. So 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100, all of these phases of business requires different set of people, different set of mindset, different set of strategies that get into it. Perspective of India versus Bharat. Uh, right now, people have started realizing how large the opportunity is in Bharat. Previously, it was all, we were all, I'm working with a US-based company. So that is changing. Yep. People are now very proud of working with an Indian-based company. They are very proud of, announcing it very, I would say at the top of their voice that, yes, I am associated with an Indian company and we are proud of working with them. So I think that has changed. The talent retention has changed. The parity between the pay has changed. In US versus India, Indian also are getting paid really well as compared to, previously people used to go outside to get more paid. So I think that's the perspective I have from India versus Bharat. And over to you. Thanks.
So, Deepanshu, to you, and you're someone who, also very interestingly has just filed for an IPO. So you're very interestingly at that phase of just about to unlock value. So would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, great to be here, Dhruv. So a little background about myself and the company. We are, one of the first D2C brands, started in 2015, right at that cusp of where people were looking at replicas of international, formats, and we were like completely out of the league, doing something which hasn't been done globally also. So we sell meat online. I run a brand called Zappfresh. We deal in poultry, goat meat, fish and seafood. We currently operate in 3 markets, NCR, Bangalore and Bombay. And our experience, so first of all, individually for me, as a founder, why to be a founder has always been a very personal journey rather than anything to do with wealth creation, frankly. It was always like, I don't know what's going to happen, but we were just going for it. It's a purpose-driven initiative for me. The 2007 recession really taught me that I have to be operating in only 3 markets, which is education, healthcare, and food. So every, I think, blip in the market or a macroeconomic situation gives you a certain lesson, or you can learn from it in different ways. My learning was that I associate myself to be more fundamental sectors which are there and what radically can be changed in those sectors. So I tried my hands in all sectors, education, healthcare, and landed up in food. And it's been 10 years now, and we continue to build a legacy brand. We've never been in that, crazy, aggressive growth, trajectory, because we believed in the market too much, actually. We believed in that there is always a demand which is going to be there. So there's no rush, or to create wealth. Patient capital is what we have appreciated, and lesser interference from investors also was appreciated, which is very difficult to get when you are in a rocket ship. So we're not in a rocket ship, never been. We're building a car and it's moving, at a good average, giving us good average. So we are fine with that. And people who want to be in the car are, want to be safe. They don't want to be in a accident. So we have avoided that, and we've been playing very cautious. That has been the overall, thought process of setting up a type of a venture. And for us, the wealth creation has happened for a lot of investors. Of course, not that crazy multiple what happens in unicorns, but we never wanted it. Okay. So there was always a clarity that wealth creation with balance is how we want to operate, and we've stuck to that. And today, I think going IPO is just another natural step which has come, forward, where we feel that, this is the right way to build, a legacy business, instead of taking private capital and then eventually figuring out what to do to create profitability. So it is a little too much risky for us. We've been a little cautious in terms of the efforts we want to put in. It's a very difficult category which we operate in, highly unorganized. There is nobody was there at that point. Even today, there are hardly 2-3 players. So we haven't seen that kind of impact till date, and there is long way to go. Overall commitment to the industry, to the category which you are starting, should be the foremost important thing which a founder should look at. If that is there, everything eventually falls in place.
So interesting segue. Quick one-line answer on, you sell frozen meats online. Now tell me the India versus Bharat.
So
within that context, give me a view of India versus Bharat.
We sell fresh meat. We
Fresh
don't
meat.
sell.
Sorry, my apologies. You sell meats, right?
I personally believe in the size which is there in the Bharat, and I believe that the India has a sex appeal to the entire global market. So you continue building that, balance, and try to ride the, momentum from a global story, but don't lose your roots. And the roots is Bharat. So build product for Bharat, but keep appealing to the international audience as well, and the investors as well. So there's no harm in doing both. We've been doing both.
Fantastic. Okay. So, Abhijeet, over to you. You run a proudly Indian coffee brand. So would love to hear from you the exact same context around, India versus Bharat, but also your journey. And I know we're going to jump into it later, but just try and touch on it briefly, and then maybe, we'll try and speed this up a little bit.
Thanks, Dhruv. I have a very different take on India versus Bharat. I'll start with an introduction on, so I'm Abhijeet Anand, I'm founder and CEO of abCo. What is abCo? abCo is India's first tech-enabled grab-and-go coffee chain. We are changing the plethora that coffee should be luxury, coffee should be meant for the niche of the country, freshly brewed coffee should be meant for 0.5% of the country. So we believe in India, for the longest of the time, coffee was always meant to be related to freshly brewed coffee, related to a particular class. A lot of international brands come to India as a neighborhood coffee place, and here they position themselves as a luxury chain. And we believe India will never be blessed with great coffee if it always remains as a niche commodity. While coffee is the second traded commodity in the world, the most consumed beverage in the world after water, still for India, all we know is instant coffee. So that's what abCo is doing.
Oh, I thought it was Johnny Walker, but okay.
Sorry?
I thought it was Johnny Walker, but okay, go for it.
Not yet. So that's what abCo is doing. We are India's highest rated coffee company in just a span of 2 years, thanks to people like us sitting in the room with some of the amazing repeat rates in the country. Now, my point of view in India versus Bharat to what has been brought in the panel is a bit different. The way I look at it, I believe for the longest of the time, everybody in India and outside India was solving for a certain India A, as I believe, or call it tier 1 India, right? So everybody was trying to solve for tier 1, wherein I believe Bharat is actually going to the roots. India is not a country where you solve, in my opinion, again, very humble opinion, that's the way I take it. India's strength lies in its roots, in its depth more than its breadth. India's roots lies in how do we reach the tier 4 capacity, tier 4 strata of the country. How do we unlock the mass consumption in the country? And the one phenomena, there's only one phenomena which I believe it has happened in India in the last 3 decades. I can speak for 3 decades, but that's all I have seen in my life, is 2014. And one thing that happened in 2014, I think a lot of people relate to that, is the geo phenomena. Before geo phenomena, I remember myself as a student and early professional, I used to change, as a student I used to swap SIMs because it was $300 for a GB or $249 for a GB. But after 2014, the dialogue changed. And that has actually taken internet from a group of people to a mass of the country. An entire internet phenomena, take it any startup, any business, any unlocking of the strength, actually happened. I believe that was the first Bharat phenomena in India. And that's what I believe, that's the debate, or that's the point I look at it. And I believe that's where solving for Bharat, people even looking outside, a couple of my friends in the US and Europe, building startups and now looking into India, they're not looking into Mumbai and Delhi. I see they are talking about Assam, they're talking about Kochi, they're talking about Mysore, which for me is the real gain for the country. That's Bharat for me.
So I'm the founder and CEO at Procmart. So just to give you a brief about our business, we are into B2B commerce. A very boring business. We do industrial supplies to large corporate like Colgate, Cadbury, PepsiCo, Unilever. And we started way back in 2015. Yeah? Just to give a brief about my journey. So I started my journey after engineering with a BHEL, right? So it's Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited. I worked there for 5 years. It was a very organized, a very very good company to work in, a bureaucratic organization. Yeah. I enjoyed a lot working there. It was not that I learned a lot from there. But after that, when I worked with a startup, right, I was working with a startup called Energo Engineering. It was not a new age startup, very much into rocket ship kind of thing, but it was a slowly build over the time and growing at that pace. So at that time, I got involved working with the founder, right, directly. And that actually changed my view. So ऐसा कुछ नहीं था कि बचपन से founder बनना था. But when I worked with a founder, right, when I got a holistic view of a company, how a company is run, how a startup is an organized chaos, right? It's very difficult to basically fight every day at a startup where you have to balance between the short term and the long term. वो जो kick है, after that I thought, boss मेरे को भी founder बनना है. तो founder के साथ काम करने पे I realized that I want to be a founder. Before that, frankly, there was nothing in me that was working towards a founder, right? Neither my family में किसी ने ever have done a business or something like that. So that gave me a kick to be a founder at that point of time. It was never about कि कुछ wealth create करनी है. मतलब frankly, at that time, what I was earning, I was very happy with that. There was nothing on the wealth side of it, but this kicking with working with the founder helped me go that extra mile to be a founder. And उसमें हुआ भी है, what problem that pain point that I already saw while working in the corporate sector, I tried to solve that. India versus Bharat, if I see, so being in a B2B industrial supply space, right? We need to be in Bharat, right? Because factories to Bharat mein hai, India mein to hai hi nahi. So there is no factory. So what happened, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, all the factories were moved away from them. So we are currently having 22 offices. Out of that, I would say 18 offices are in Bharat, right? So, but the problem obviously that we faced initially is ki, when we had an office in Delhi or Bangalore or Mumbai, right? We had people coming in and joining in us, right? But way back in 2016-17, when we started opening our offices in Vadodara, Pondicherry, right? There were no people who were coming. First of all, startup, for them it was a strange thing, why we should join a startup. Secondly, a manufacturing background, right? A manufacturing background and a startup, it doesn't It didn't go gel at that time, and being a B2B startup where actually B2C were dominating at that point of time. So it took us time to convince people that believe in our vision, right? But it happened slowly and gradually, and frankly, over the time, I have seen a lot of acceptance from Bharat, right? About the startup, about how the startup ecosystem is. And yeah, it has been a great journey, and India is evolving. Even each small sectors are evolving. So today, when we go to a small city like Bhilai or Kochi, things have changed. Yeah. People are ready to join startup. People are ready to put that extra efforts to make sure that uh, things grow. Yeah. So that have changed a lot.
Great. So I think you covered part of my next question, and I think what I wanna bring from that from all of you is that you found a problem and you chased that problem. Now, as a founder, what I found very interesting was that Abhijeet, you spent 10 years doing, nearly 10 years doing oil and gas, which Schlumberger, and I'm assuming you were on rigs and enjoying the per diem lifestyle. And then suddenly one day you say, screw all of this, I'm now going to go out and launch a coffee chain. What I'm trying to get at is a path to sustainable wealth creation is that you figure out a good business model, you crack what the model is, whether it's, someone calls it product market fit, someone calls it, hypothesis based testing, whatever it might be. But there is an aha and a eureka moment that happens. So Abhijit, let's start with you and then we'll get everyone to just chime in for like 10 seconds each. But like, how did you suddenly one day go from oil and gas to saying, look, I'm going to do this in coffee? And when was your aha moment in coffee that's saying, okay, ye bada ban sakta hai, I'm now going to dedicate the next 10 years of my life to this because that's where I'm going to get the kick, as Anish just mentioned.
No, Dhruv, great question. So I'll add a bit context that you asked in the previous question as well. So I come from east of India. The only way I knew coffee was I used to sprinkle instant coffee on top of my tea during winters, right? And instant coffee was bitter, so never liked it. Moved into job, got a dream job after graduating from IIT, Dhanraj. And then the only reason I will go to a XYZ cafe is because I'll either be on a date or a meeting or a business in-person collaboration, because I wouldn't want to pay $300 for a coffee. Just did not make sense from the part of Bharat I come from. So again, life changes. An idea initially was to be in job, right? So coming from Bihar, either you become an engineer, a doctor, an IAS, or nobody. I chose engineer. So, but after 10 years working in 6 different cities, 3 different countries, 6 different job roles, different kind of environment, I came back to India 2021 to found a company because I realized, and I had a very comfortable life in Europe, and I realized India is the only nation in the world where you can go from X to 1000X, and there's no other place. So leaving that comfort, that was the answer, right? But when come to India, I did not want to start coffee, I wanted to start wine. And I realized wine was complicated, right? Too much of things you can't control, right? And you, as an entrepreneur, you don't want to be in line. I mean, you're fighting every single day, but you definitely want to have some control on the parameters that you do. So coffee happened by accident because I spent $24,000 in 1 month drinking 3 times a day. That did not ring well to me. Said, India is the 5th largest producer of coffee in the world, 7th largest exporter of coffee in the world. Why is the cup of coffee in India cost the same in London, San Francisco, New York, and Singapore? This did not make sense, right? So love was there, passion was there, and I think to one of your point, was wealth creation a part of it? The answer at that point of time was no. And I believe that's where personality comes in. I'll let my fellow founders also comment. Personality comes in because for a lot of founders, based on the people I've met, is the kick. Is the kick. So a lot of people get kicked because you get challenged. You like unseen territories, uncharted waters. And that was that for me. And I realized, and the difference, I run an NGO for the last 7 years, and I found a difference is, NGO is where you create value for the people. Business is when you create a value for the people, plus there is a business gap, so you make money out of it. And abCo for me was the latter. That's why I landed up to abCo.
Interesting. Let me pull Vaibhav into this, right? Because you talked about setting up a business. Now, Vaibhav is someone, so is Anish, but Vaibhav, you entered a very, very traditional business world with a very different approach. Now, this is a business where one, people have not, they innovate, but they innovate when they get to scale, and you are innovating really early on and then becoming more mission driven. So that's one challenge already. The second is, this is a business where people have, used debt or their own revenues and revenue factoring to grow the business and not have raised equity or given out parts of the company. So both things you're doing differently simultaneously because you want to build a business. And I'm assuming, that's not the, wealth was not in the first three priorities, it was building a great business, right? So how has that journey been for you? Because it's a little different. He said, you're trying to build a business as a founder, you're doing it for the kick, you're doing it to, create maybe a large sustainable business that someday you're addressing problems of Bharat. How has that been for you? How has that journey been for you? And how did you come around and say, okay, this is what I want to solve?
Great question, Dhruv. And somewhere I relate with Abhijeet as well. So I did my graduation from NIFT, nowhere related to chemistry or whatsoever what we are doing today. What we believe, or what I believe rather, when I started Bambrew in 2018, it's been 7 years, almost 6 years now, more than 6 years now, that if you want to create your own space, you will have to think differently, you have to build differently. Yep. And at that point of time, there was a lot of noise around single-use plastic straws getting banned in US, right? And it was inevitable that this ban would come in India as well. So strong government tailwinds across the globe, which we foresee much, much earlier, gave us the time to experiment, fail multiple times, maybe more than 1,000 times I would say we have failed, supported by the government of India as well in development of these materials, what we have done so far. Wealth creation was never the problem, or I would say never the focus. But, as Abhijeet rightly said, the juncture of, creating value and at the same time making money for your own self or making business sense is very important. So we realized that, it is important to create a business because if we are only developing a product, we are not creating an NGO. To be really honest, we are here to make business. We are here to make wealth for our investors and for ourselves as well. And, it's a traditional business. We are still seen as a manufacturing company and not as a material development company or a metamaterial company, which we are trying to change into the people. Creating something which is very different, it is a traditional business. Packaging will always be, and historically also will be, a traditional business. How you can add value to that traditional business is something that you'll have to look forward to. It would have been very easier for me to create a company into plastics or into paper, right? But that was not the case. So what is so unique about it? What is your moat, right? Is what we need to think upon. About creating anything for that matter, like, which is Anish's thing or, Abhijeet or, anybody for that matter. That moat is extremely important, and that can come from multiple ways. Uniqueness into the product, how you are positioning yourself into the market, what is the value that you are creating for your customers, what is you that you're solving for your customers. So the customer has to be in the center for each and everything. You have to solve for it, no matter what. So traditionally business ki aaj man kya banaya, kal man kya nahi banaya, office band hai. That has been the case with a lot of manufacturers, which we want to change. Yeah. The experience of a B2B company with their suppliers need to change. That kind of service is not there in India, was not there in India. And I'm happy that, we are trying to bring that change.
Got it. Interesting. I do want to do, and I know Anish is nodding his head because, we've chatted about this very similarly. We'll come back, I'll circle back to this in a second. But one of the big things, when you were touching about is, we've all been talking about mission and vision driven. One of the big things that companies are also built up by people, right? And you need your employees also to be mission and vision driven. While yes, people do believe in you and the founder, they also come in believing on the, that if I put in this hard work, if I burn the, go beyond, there's never a defined job scope for an employee, right? Early stage employees, you do sab kuch karte jo karna hota hai, right? You grow, you do whatever it takes to grow, problem solve, troubleshoot. Now, as you're growing this sort of gamut, why do they do it? One, I'm not saying the only, but one of the reasons is that there is a lucrative ESOP value that comes in, right? Interesting fact, in the last 4 years, even with the funding winter slowdown, about $1.5 billion worth of ESOPs have been encashed based on filings, right? If you look at it, only $1 billion was done in 2022. A little over half of that was done by one company, Flipkart, when they did the PhonePe merger, and 140 employees just walked away with like, 500 to 600 million dollars. So the fact is that you stick in, you play the long game, you stick in it long enough, it happens. But that's also now, as you talk to, my wife is an executive search, so she talks about placing CXOs, she does the consumer tech world. She says the faith in ESOPs is now going down. People aren't seeing as much of it. Every funding winter or every down cycle makes people deterred from it. So now one side you need talent, you need great talent to grow a business, because how long can you do it yourself? You need more of you replicated to do that, and that's great talent from the market. That talent comes, yes, because they believe in you and the vision, but they also want that ESOP value. But on the other side, you also have people not believing in it because it's not easy liquidity. Deepanshu, you're someone who's very close to unlocking that value for a lot of your employees and a lot of your investors. Let's start with you. How does this ESOP की value नहीं है market में, इसीलिए अच्छा talent नहीं आता, problem being solved, and then let's get all of you to chime in, maybe quickly, and we'll try to conserve some time.
Dhruv, let's look at Bharat from this perspective. Where is the ESOP in Bharat? It's all about, teaming up with a purpose-driven team which wants to reap benefits together, irrespective of that cycles, irrespective of, that money-making machine, There needs to be more emotions, emotional intelligence, I would say, rather than we are looking at a more rational mindset here. And for us, what has worked, I'll tell you, I've chased people to work with me for 2 years, 3 years. They've gone to competition. Those competition got shut down. They came back again. So now we want to work with you. So what I'm trying to help you understand is that ESOP is not the only carrot here, okay, and should not be the only carrot. There needs to be a little more long-term approach which the prospective employee needs to have. And how we have looked at people when we hire is purely entrepreneurial streak, how hungry they are to grow, but not foolish to leave. So that is, something which is very rare to come by. And with the youth, that has happened a lot because, of course, of this, so much money being flushed, they've gotten a taste of what that adrenaline rush is of money. And it is getting corrected. So I think it's a correction. It has nothing to do with, that interest is going to go back. Maybe there's a blip that, they don't see that ESOP value, but it's going to come back again. And now it'll come back in a better way. With us, we being going public, I mean, our value unlock is immediate when we give ESOPs. So that's what I was talking about, that, you stay vested with the company. If you believe in the founder and in that industry, that's what matters.
Got it.
The payouts will come in different ways and in different forms, which you relate to as an individual. So if somebody, for me, in my team, for example, I don't do any micromanaging. I give a lot of freedom. So there is certain kind of a USP which the founder of the team, provides to, the set of employees. And they need to identify that as a fit for them. And that fit may have the ESOP component immediately getting unlocked, or that may have it later. That's a very subjective thing. There is value. There is absolute value in ESOP. A lot of people who are mature, are able to understand it. The young is because they've seen that cycle, they don't know, that they have to spend
Fair.
and do hard work to
Got
get
it.
what they deserve.
Got it. Anish, because you've out of the 5 of us, you're the second longest running organization, so would love for you to jump in on this.
See, on one side of it, I totally agree with Deepanshu, right? See, ESOP as a concept is very westernized, right? Wealth cannot be the only motive for any employee to join, right? ESOP cannot be the only motive, and India actually is very diverse country where the motives uh, are very different, right? Every person has, someone has money, someone has culture, everything. There's a lot of diversity that we see, right? So obviously ESOP can be one part of it, right? But there are a lot of ways to make sure that you have great talent in-house. Secondly, I think so, थोड़ा सा Indian investors and over the time, I think so ESOP cannot be an event that only liquidates at the time of IPO, right? So as a founder, I really have to fight with the investors to get the ESOPs unlocked in between, right? I don't know why it is in India, but it's there, right? And it didn't make any sense, right? Because if the startups are giving ESOPs, right, and if they have to wait 10, 15 years to IPO, because IPO is not something that can happen in a 2, 3 years unless it's a very different kind of business, right? So investors has to believe in that, right? And that has to pass on to basically make sure that culture of startup grows, right? So I think so founders should not have to fight. That should be something that I think so if we have even copied from Western world, right, then we should see that it gets copied right.
In the right way. Nakal karo to wo bhi theek se karo, dimag laga karo.
Sahi.
I agree. Okay, we're gonna wrap up very fast. 30 seconds each one of you. One thing you'd like. It could be anyone. It could be the regulator. It could be your investors. It could be your employees. It could be you yourself or the founder community. One thing that you'd like to start. One thing that you'd like to stop. And one thing that you'd like to continue so that this cultural narrative of startups improves, very specific to the wealth creation, right? So link the startup narrative to wealth creation, something that you'd like to start, stop, continue. I mean, the government has already done something, right? They've moved the capital gain rate down from 20 to 12 and a half. That's a step in the right direction. My hope is it continues in that right direction, right? I think they should start simplifying the codes, maybe allowing for secondary trading to become a digital practice. Something I feel that should stop is what he said, right? This need for things to move faster and constant validation that is required. I think whether it's founders or employees, they need to stop worrying about funding being a validator, right? Model is predicated on capital, is a very dangerous and a tricky slope to be under. Capital should be predicated on the model. So that's my view. I'd love to go around the room, starting with you. Quick start, stop, continue.
I would like to start, implementation of the policies which are there but never gets implemented, right? So that's something I would like to start because that will lead to creating more wealth for the organization or the industry. Something I would like to stop would be the corruption which is there, to be honest, even in the, corporate world. And continue building for the solutions or the solutions around the customers that we have.
I think I would love to start, getting involved in, more food regulatory, discussions with government because as I don't know how many people know that, in food, first of all, is the maximum inflation is happening in food. There is 26% structuring that, yes. And
What would you like to stop?
I would like to stop, delaying things and fast track few initiatives which we've been sitting on for a while. And the last one was, the third one was?
Continue, something you'd like to continue.
I think,
You think the industry should continue, you should continue.
I think would continue, attracting the right talent, is something which is all like, it's a all the time thing which you have to do because you keep looking at adding people and people are the most important thing.
How the value proposition
how do you keep
of an
interacting
organization.
and engaging with the right people to come on board, join the bandwagon is ultimate for me.
Very interesting. Abhijeet.
What I would like to start from the institution is true digitalization of the process and transparency. We, the government or the regulators have been talking about it a lot, but specifically in food and retail, it's 10% transparent, 90% translucent. So I'll say we have to go from 0 to 1 in that case. What I would like to stop is only associating the success of an organization to a founder or to a group of people. I think it's a success of the team. It comes bottoms up, not top down. So I'd like to create a scenario where it should not just be a couple of people who are glamorized. What I would like to continue is building in the international texture into the discussion, so more international companies coming into and helping out, collaborating with Indian companies. There are a lot of stringent policies put in place, which means certain ratio of ownership and things around it. So more kind of transparency will help Indian businesses to flourish with international standard.
Great. So globalization should continue. India should keep being open their borders, make it easy for people to come in.
Start, I would say, for a start, we should enjoy failure, right? That's one thing that we should do, right? Even a failed entrepreneurship is something to be proud of, right? Stop, I would say, stop seeing success as a one-night thing, right? Because suddenly we have so much social media that most of the youngsters think that it's a one-night thought process of basically doing and changing it. Yeah.
Business is not a TikTok reel which goes viral overnight.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. And continue?
Continue, I think so. India, ease of doing business is one thing that I see that India is improving, but there's a long way to go, right? And government should push it as much as possible, because we have just started in Malaysia, Indonesia, and we see still India is not that better, and though we are much better in tech and everything if we compare from these countries, right? But I still think that even in Vietnam, we are seeing that we have just started and the ease of doing business there is good than India.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you're saying we are opening up, but we should continuously keep simplifying the way to do business. Great. So thank you. I think it's been a great panel. Thank you to the panelists. I'll summarize quickly by saying I think the three big takeaways for me are, keep the pride in India and Bharat going, do the India sexy, but still look at the Bharat opportunity because it's significantly larger. Let the tip of the iceberg draw people in, but then work for everything else. Capital, is recognized in two ways. It should be patient and it should bring value to the table. There's enough capital available in the world, but value addition externally, that matters more. And I think the third is, which I quite liked, was that, everyone is mission and vision driven first. But the idea is that you look for stability, and stability is actually what gets awarded. With ESOPs, it's not the other way around, that because I'm giving you ESOPs, you continue to being stable. So that's really been an interesting point for me. But thank you all. I had a great time sort of chairing this session. And I think we are between you and lunch, so we'll now call it a day.